What's up, everybody? This is Grant at Cause Artist. Welcome to episode 230 of the Disruptors for Good podcast. Today, I had the privilege of speaking with Angela O'Brien, founder and creative director of Cleobella, an ethical fashion brand rooted in global inspiration, artisan partnership, and sustainability. What began as a dream during a year-long adventure through Southeast Asia in 2006 has grown into a globally recognized brand celebrated for its craftsmanship, transparency, and committed to empowering women. What started at Maui Farmers Market nearly 20 years ago is now carried in Nordstrom, Anthropologie, and other large retail institutions. In our conversation, Angela shares the remarkable journey behind the Cleobella brand, its ethos, and how deep, long-standing artisan partnerships have shaped every collection since its inception. Angela's story is a testament to the power of relationships, purpose, and doing things the hard way. I hope everybody's doing well, staying healthy. Let's get into the episode. Thanks. Well, Angela, thank you so much for taking the time today. I was reading a lot about, your journey and the Cleobella journey. And I'm excited to talk because travel is inserted in a lot of the spark, let's say, that created this lifelong journey that you've taken with Cleobella and which you and your family have built. So travel is, I always say it's such an inspirational thing. Always learn something. It's the most educational thing you can do in life. So before we get started on like what Cleobella is, everything it's done so far and maybe what it's going to do in the future and what it's created. Talk a little bit about that journey beforehand. What was sort of the inspiration and spark for it?
I love that question because it's really fun to go back down memory lane. It was 20 years ago. And I know that because upcoming in June, I'm celebrating my 20-year wedding anniversary with my husband, who's also my business partner, Jim. And we were kids in our 20s, and we knew that we wanted a life of travel and community and creativity. And my husband's a big surfer, and so travel has been part of his lifestyle, seeing waves. And so after we were married, we left our jobs and we did a trip around the world for a year. I don't even think Facebook was a thing. We had like a blog. We were writing. Social media wasn't as what it is today. And we bought this ticket with this company called AirTracks. And as long as you traveled around in the same direction, you could just keep going. If you fell in love with a place, you could stay there longer, delete your ticket, and move on to the next. So that's what we did. And when we were in Bali, Indonesia, we fell in love and we thought, how could we find a way to keep coming back here? So we ended up traveling after that to India, and I imported these wrap skirts made from recycled saris, which was a wonderful give back program because women in the local village and local markets, and then they were sold, and then I sold them at farmers market on the weekends. We fell in love with Southeast Asia and with very little investment. I would say my husband was my investor. We had about $12,000 that, bought these wrap skirts, and I designed a few leather clutches. And then we moved back to Hawaii after our trip of traveling because we didn't want to come back to California. We wanted to keep going. And I sold my designs and my imported treasures at local farmers markets on the weekends with a pop-up tent and a folding table and clothespins where I hung my creations all around the booth. And it was such a great learning experience of, getting a business license, building my own web store. I found wholesale accounts around the islands of Hawaii selling my products with my minivan and, knocking on door to door. Will you buy our goods? So it was a real jump into entrepreneurship. But what I really loved was travel. And it was really, how can we make enough money to go back to Bali, design a collection, and then go back and sell it? So we've been doing that now since 2006. What a life. I think of when I connect to, our personal values and what we love to do. I just feel so grateful that I keep getting to do this all these years. We just got back from Bali last week, and our children now have been raised in the business. We have a 14-year-old and a 10-year-old. And
it's pretty amazing. So for those who kind of don't know, give us the whole sort of the scope of what Cleobella is, sort of, what it does as a business, but then also, the impact, behind the scenes of whether it's job creation, economic stability, and then with that becomes a domino effect of good things that happen in a person's life, or it could be a community even. So give us the overall scope of Cleobella from everything it does.
Cleobella is named after my mom, Cleobella, and she's from Northern Ireland, and it's named after her grandmother, who's from Nebraska. My grandfather was in the Navy. I met my grandmother in Ireland when he was stationed there. And so I think of these strong feminine women who have been in my life, and I think about the women that we get to work with, and me privileged to be a female entrepreneur. So that was always very important. When we were traveling through India, I noticed how hard these women were working, whether they were packing dung patties on the side of the road, which is cow manure, and they are adorned in these gorgeous saris with their bindis on their head and their jewels. And I just I could see myself in them, and them wanting to support their family. I remember I was told this by a woman that we work with in the south of India, and she said, Angela, and it's a phrase everyone knows, but you can give a man fish and he'll eat for the day, but you teach him how to fish and he'll eat for a lifetime. There's so much study on the idea of giving, but job creation is what brings people out of poverty. And
Yep.
and that can be more impactful if it's one large order for one retailer where it's thousands and thousands of units for that 1 month and it stops. That's tricky for supply chains. They have to build the infrastructure for it, and then it goes away. So what's been important for us is building this slow business of consistency. And we're able to do that through our partnerships with wholesale as well as our e-com business that's growing. Cleobella works with more than 500 specialty stores, and there are a lot of small mom and pop stores, as well as we work with Nordstrom's, Anthropologie, Pop Revolve. These are already also larger online retail stores. And we've been growing over the years our e-com business where we can try new things. So all of this allows us to have a monthly business. Every new delivery is something exciting, and then it's gone. And then we move on to something new. So it's this kind of energetic flow of creativity that makes for a consistent business. And, we've never taken on outside investment, so we can be the drivers of the way we run our
Wow.
business. So having, a slow, steady growth has been important to us. Plus, my husband, he always tells me that, partners can be assholes. And he's like, and we don't
Yeah.
want that in our company. And so when we look at the bottom line of what we're trying to do, we have to be creative because we don't have these huge marketing budgets, but we're able to really do things on our own terms. And it's really worked out great. And it's been a really wonderful, exciting, challenging journey, as you can imagine.
I want to go back to when you first, I guess, decided to get the LLC created and started to really think about making it a business. I love the sort of the spirit of just like doing it, building the website yourself, doing all these steps, on your own teaches you so much. But if you can take us back then, and like, what did your first website you built look like compared to the one now, which is like, beautiful
Oh
and
my
it's amazing.
God.
I'm sure there's been iterations of the brand for the last 20
It was
years.
embarrassing. Oh my gosh. I would say the tech side of me, I'm more right brain than left brain. I kind of head up the creative part of the business. It was a challenge, to say the least. I actually had my cousin help me with it. I said, I'll fly you over to Maui because we were living there at the time if you help me create it.
Great deal.
So, I part of good collaboration is bringing people in that love you and want to support you and have different skill sets and talents. But the early days, was bootstrapped. After we were in Maui for a year and I was selling at farmers markets, that was '07 when the economy crashed and we moved back to California. And I knew that the LA Fashion Mart, I could potentially sell my designs at LA Fashion Week. So what we did in January of 2008 is I created a line sheet of our collection and shopped it around at some of the local showrooms. And it was a great opportunity because I rented a showroom with Havaianas, the sandal company, and it brought in a lot of traffic to the brand. And the woman that owned the showroom saw that I was really helpful in all the other brands that she had product here. And that allowed me to run the business from my house on the weekends and the evenings and work with her, I think Monday through Thursday on selling the product, making a little bit of money so I could support myself and learning the business. And she would bring me to trade shows in New York to help her with her other designers. And I would sleep in her boyfriend's closet. It was literally, he had an artist loft in New York and a closet. And I would go out to the trade shows and I would be working for everyone else. And I could fan my little leather clutches on the table. So I worked with Gazella for 2 years until she represented Cleobella.
Wow.
And that was the way to create something out of nothing and learn the business. And then it got to be too big. And then Gazella represented Cleobella as a brand. And so when I think of, what that business looked like at the time, it was building a business through wholesale because I could get a purchase order for the product, a lot of small specialty stores. And then it would fly back to Bali and make it. Because at the time we were spending about 4 months a year in Bali whenever we could. And I would design a new collection, make sure the product was created, and then come back and ship it. So I was really a one-woman show back and forth. And my husband, but I did that for a number of years until I could hire an assistant. And so it was a very gradual process. And I'm so grateful for that time because I've done all parts of the business and you learn a lot from that. And I think you can be a more empathetic leader when you've done everything.
I wanted to chat about, I guess, artisans themselves or the individuals who make this, wearable art, let's say. It really is beautiful. Take us to how they started maybe 20 years ago. What were they sort of doing? Were they doing the same thing you were doing, like making stuff and going to their own sort of markets to where they were and selling their stuff, and maybe to where they are now based on Cleobella's growth and how your partnership has grown with those original makers, let's say, early on, and how that partnership's grown and maybe what it is today?
There's Yenny, who I also met shopping at a local market, and she runs some of our woven weekenders, and we do hand crochet pieces, and she manages a group of artisans, big and small, to make some of our handbags. And there's Harry, who does a lot of our leather goods. We helped him build a factory. It was essentially a factory that was right next to his home, and our children have grown up together. So that's really what the Bali story is. Oh, there's Mo and Aaliyah, who made the leather clutches for us, which we still sell. It was one of our very initial designs. And every year we get to see them in Bali. I think that's just the most rewarding part, that you can't help but see when you are going to the makers who are making the dream become a reality. They're really the true talent that makes it all happen. And we try to highlight that and share the story. I wish I could take everyone to Bali and India and let them see how the product is made. They're artists. They really are.
You mentioned sort of trying to go down the path of your B Corp certified. Sustainability has been a big mantra from the beginning. Ethical is a term that I think, you appreciate, sort of the original sort of B Corp culture, sort of appreciated. As you grow and scale, though, as a company, how do you sort of maintain, those sustainability practices, those ethical practices, while growing the business side of things? Has that been difficult, or have you found that actually pretty easy to scale impact while scaling the business side of things? Have you found that to be difficult and more challenging?
Well, I wouldn't say any of this has been easy. I know for me that what I can only control what I can possibly control within our bandwidth, and 70 to 80% of the decision making starts with the design, and it's the fibers we choose. As a mother, I'm so cautious about the fibers I put on my skin, the type of food I buy for our family to eat, and there's only about less than 15% of the fibers that we choose at Cleobella are synthetic, and that's because it's in categories where, for example, swim, where you have to have that stretch and that nylon. Mm-hmm. So part of the decision making on a product side is the fibers we choose, and then also the factory partners we work with. And we do regular audits with our factories to make sure that they're meeting all of our expectations when it comes to integrity. We don't own our factory, so it's building trust with our partners that we work with, and that's very important. And there's so many decisions you can make when it comes to sustainability. I choose to still work with our partners in Bali because they are families that we want to continue to give work to. It doesn't necessarily mean we have the best margins in Bali, or that, for example, the fibers in Bali, the materials that we buy, they're imported from other parts of Asia, where in India, we know where the GOTS certified organic cotton is grown. So there's these conversations that you make weekly where we're going to prioritize production, and that a lot of it is led by my heart, and making sure that we equally give business to the partners we work with. And we try to have these planning meetings with our partners every year so they have an idea of how to scale with Cleobella. So, there's so many nuances to what sustainability means as a company. Going through the B Corp journey, and it was almost a 2-year process. We hired a team to help us, and they did such a massive audit with everything from the lighting we use in our office to the cleaning products we use, to the type of insurance program we have, to there are all these decisions that you can make that is really business for good. And so that's when you lean on the collaboration, the experts who know more than you. And that's where we try to guide like every aspect of the business when it comes to sales, everything down to how much paper are we using? Are we using the front and back side of the paper when we're printing for design meetings or sales presentations? So there's a lot of little things that can go a long way with the kind of company culture that we really try to keep, and elevating all the people that work at Cleobella here in our office and outside. Because of our slow growth, we've been able to do it gradually and bring in experts who know more than us. Because frankly, being an entrepreneur, it's such a spiritual journey. It didn't start this business with any idea of what it would become today. Running this business with my husband, we're so invested in so much of it, and we're really just trying to do the best that we can as the company grows. And I would say we're not always perfect, but we're always trying to learn and grow. And I think that's been one of the biggest rewarding parts of this journey, is personally growing along as the business has grown. And we always say, when you know better, you do better. And that's part of learning. What I thought sustainability was is so different from what I know it to be today. Yeah. And that's the challenge. And that's where you grow. You grow in the challenge. At Cleobella's, if you see on their website, there's a lotus flower that I hand drew, and it resembles a block print, which is the teak wood that they carve in Bali to make a lot of our prints, in India to make a lot of our prints. And what the lotus flower reminds me is that you can grow in that dirty, murky water and be that beautiful lotus flower, whether it's a bright magenta color or a pearly white, and it only grows in that dirty water. And I feel like that's what this business has done to me. It's allowed me to grow amongst all the challenging times. And it's fun for the most part.
That it's such an intense, I've had a different feeling about B Corps over time. I don't know. My philosophy on it changes. It's like you're doing so much impactful things as the business already. And then it seems like they make it harder, for you as like a small business to move forward with like the paper stuff and the lighting stuff and the cleaning materials in the office. Like, I feel like the bigger stuff that you guys are doing is much more like impactful. And I don't know, sometimes I think they make it a little bit more difficult than it sort of needs to be. And then just
even when, I don't know. It's a lot. We had interviews when we were in Bali with some of our makers, and there was questions about Yanti and what the work environment is. And I'm like, Yanti's working out of her house. It's not a huge factory, but we're creating business for her. The capsule collection we do all the time, and we're doing it because I love Yanti and her family. And so those are some things that are measured.
Exactly. But those are like the most meaningful metrics, right? It's like you're going out of your way to make sure that you try to give equal business to your partners because you care about them. And like, that's not a metric that is measured. And for all the other brands, like what you do and other brands like you guys do so much more than like other big brands that just get the B Corp labels slapped on them now, it seems like. And I feel like it waters it down for brands like
Yeah.
you who actually like live the philosophy and sort of like do all the really hard things. I just get frustrated sometimes about it because I think the brands like you just are everything that it should mean to be. And I feel like they make it so much harder for you guys to to be a part of that ecosystem where it's like there's no way Tom's does what like there's no
Well,
way Nespresso and like these other brands do what you do. I know that. And it's just like I don't, so it's just I don't know, it hurts my feelings a little bit. Anyway.
you and my husband could have a long conversation about this. He questions all of it, and I just
Yep.
try to look at it as, that there's something in place that we could be a part of and to help celebrate the good, and even if
Yep.
it's small moments of good throughout the company. I don't know why everyone's not trying to do their part for business for good. I mean, we make decisions every day on using recycled materials in all of our process, using organic product, that all of this, it adds to the bottom line. And I
Yep.
don't know why everyone doesn't do it, but it's part of, you go back to the farmers that are working in environments with pesticides and chemicals all over them. Well, why wouldn't you spend a
Yeah.
little bit more to invest in organic certified? And then there's greenwashing around that too, are these
Yep.
farmers doing the right things? And, you can't possibly be at every point of the supply chain. And that's the
Yep.
part that you feel so vulnerable. But all you can do is the best you can with what's in front of you. And that's, we all make decisions every day in our life. And so much of, there's this book called Buy the Change You Want to See in the World, and really connecting to the consumers have so much power in the way that this
Yeah.
world operates. Consumers, decided to not spend money on plastic water bottles and to not buy fast fashion from the, Temu, Sheins of
Yep.
the world. It would be a much, much better world. And so it's educating. I think of our little marketing team as we're almost like a little media company, which trying to share that
Yep.
message
Yep.
without the greenwashing. We want to, in a way, say, think about this decision that you're making when you're purchasing this product. And I think it's a trickle effect for every part of your business. And what's exciting, and I think it's happened since COVID, is more people are having these conversations. And it's, I would like
Mm-hmm.
to think B Corp is a part of it in a way on
Yep.
because, I mean, the process was so full on. My husband spearheaded it with our team and some of the consultants that we hired, and now we work closely with B Lab. You really got to be doing the right thing to make your
Mm-hmm.
marks and to become B
Businesses like yours have to kind of deal with another, and that is sort
Corp.
of the tariff situation. Have you as a business had to deal with that yet? As I mean, obviously
Yeah.
global supply chains are going to hit everybody on some level, but what are the conversations like internally with that? How do you prepare for that? How do move forward the next 6 months, kind of, maybe not knowing or not having certainty as you did maybe a year ago?
Oh my gosh, Grant, that's the biggest conversation around here. We are so grateful that we do not produce in China, but that was very intentional. I know there's so many wonderful factories in China. We always knew that producing in India and Indonesia, where we have, personal relationships with the factories, was really important to us. There's just some things that China does so great that is, it is part of our daily world that we all consume or wear. So if our business was in China, I don't think we would still be in business, just to put it into perspective.
Mm,
And I know some friends who have small businesses that are just being crushed right now, and my heart goes out to them. It's so devastating. We're fortunate that most of our production is done in India, but we're trying not to increase our prices because it's an additional 10% on top of the average 16%. So we're at about 26% tariffs for India. Bali is almost 50% because I believe it's
mm.
32% in Indonesia, which it's hard because you don't want to have to increase the price with the customer. You don't want to have to let people go, but you have to look at the bottom line and the health of the business.
I'll end on a couple questions here. One would be just, advice for, upcoming entrepreneurs, social entrepreneurs who want to build something, might not be in the fashion space, could be in any sort of, sector that's trying to solve a problem or, create opportunities for people around the world or even locally? What were some of the advice you'd give some aspiring entrepreneurs? You've learned so much and you've done it. You've taken the road less traveled and you're still fighting, right? Like 20 years that's a tip to the cap. That's an amazing accomplishment. Any advice you can give to aspiring entrepreneurs would be great.
Thank you. I think the part where you said you're still fighting, you have to love it. It has to be so true to you and to be so aligned with your purpose as a human. I've asked myself that question a lot because I was, a young girl in my 20s with a love of travel, a love for my husband, a love for people. I've had so many other female entrepreneurs that have guided me. And I think as a mother, my young son who's 14 and my daughter who's 10, I just keep telling them, find what you love to do, find what excites you, what makes you feel alive, and lean into that. Don't chase the money, because we're certainly not chasing the money for this. We're chasing the freedom to the time.
Yeah.
Getting into that feminine nature that is so much of this brand's ethos, and celebrating that through fashion and dressing up and the energy exchange that it feels how great it feels to just get dressed up and to feel good. That's palpable. That transcends generational. And I believe in the power of energy, and where you put your energy is what you receive. And I hope that when someone wears a Cleobella piece, that they can feel that and maybe find their own purpose and help them with whatever. It might sound cheesy, but it feels so true to me. And so that's what I would say, is just find what you love to do and put your whole heart into it, and continue to lean into the opportunities. And
it's authentic. It's not cheesy. It's just authentic. Well, thank you so much, Angela, for taking the time. I know you're busy, a lot of things to do. I just really appreciate what you and the team have built and your story of entrepreneurship. Well, you and your husband's, really, you guys' story and journey building something for 20 years is no small feat. Congrats to you and the team for building everything thus far, and best of luck for the next decade to come.